Yeah, good day for sure.
It was a great weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, that's a good start, but we got obviously work to do, but he helps a ton. We'll talk about it, but
Yeah, you just now hope he could get Caden Curry. I think Omar Cooper is
yeah,
going to commit in June.
yeah,
We'll see. And then they're going all over the country that first week of June. It seems.
yeah. All right, we are live on Twitter and YouTube now. Sammy, thanks for hopping on here. Obviously, a big Sunday news announcement here around 4 o'clock today on Sunday. Dasan McCullough, 4-star / 5-star athlete, top 100 player, 50th in the country overall, flips from Ohio State to Indiana, joins his two brothers, and of course, Coach Dylan McCullough at Indiana. Sammy, obviously, we heard it was kind of, we heard rumblings this was possible, but I think flipping this soon, obviously, pretty big deal for IU.
Yeah, at first it didn't look like it was going to happen when Coach McCullough got rehired at IU. Dasan came out and said that he was committed to Ohio State. He wanted to stay there, and then all of a sudden, you had Dea, the youngest brother, commit, and then earlier this weekend you had Dylan McCullough II commit as well, and that's when he started hearing rumblings from the Ohio State side that a flip was imminent. Apparently, he told coaches on Saturday that he had a change of heart. He wanted to go play with his brothers, and for his dad, a once in a lifetime opportunity. And then you saw the crystal balls come out around noon. 1 o'clock this afternoon, and when Steve Wiltfong, Matt Weaver, and whoever the guy from Bucknuts is putting crystal balls towards IU, it was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and he pulled the trigger around 4 o'clock this afternoon, and it's a significant get for IU, not just because he's a top 50 player and he's the highest rated commit, and I don't get wrapped up in all that stuff because every time we do that, like Lynn Bowden was a commit and he was the highest rated commit and he went and signed somewhere else. So I like to save those things for when kids sign and stuff like that. But he was a big linchpin in that Ohio State class in terms of recruiting guys. Mm-hmm. And he told Steve Wiltfong in the article on 247 that he's going to go out and recruit for IU and get guys to come in and buy in for Coach Allen. I think that, we'll get to where he fits on the field. But right now for IU, his biggest impact is going to be on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You've already seen some of Ohio State's top commits that they have in the 22 class say, I'm not going anywhere still. This doesn't affect my decision. So, I mean, Dasan McCullough was, like you just said, kind of a pretty big cog for that Ohio State class next year. And he holds a lot of weight, especially in the Midwest with some of these top recruits. So June will be a huge month for Indiana. We talked about it last week on our last live show, but June is shaping up to be a huge month, especially in the first 3 weekends. But getting McCullough in the fold here early and before June, hopefully now.
Audio, Alex.
Oh. But hopefully now that he's in the fold here before June, hopefully that kind of pays off with some of the other top guys in the class. But let's get in a little bit. It's early. Obviously, he's an athlete, so you don't know exactly where he fits. But Sammy, I think he kind of projects. Just he's 6'5", 220, freakish athlete, can kind of roam the field, make plays on the ball all over. I think early he projects as kind of an edge linebacker, not exactly a husky, but I think a guy you'll throw on the edge, probably rush the passer a good amount, but he's athletic enough to still cover and play the middle of the field, which is huge. So early on, where do you kind of see McCullough making maybe his early impact when he shows up in Bloomington on the field?
I think he's perfect for that bull position. I know he's a little small at 220 pounds, but he has the 6'5" frame and his body can handle putting on weight. He does have the coverage skills. He's played corner and he's played safety in high school. And, all these Bloomington high school football fans are in for a treat this fall.
Yeah, that's a pretty good back end of that defense now, yeah.
And, Bloomington South usually has a pretty strong program anyway. So you got to be excited about that. If you're living down in Bloomington on Friday nights, you can go see South play, and Saturdays you head over to Memorial Stadium. But I think he plays at that bowl position. I think he puts on the weight to do it. That's where Ohio State had him projected as well, as like an edge rusher who can cover, and that's what the bowl position is. It's that hybrid linebacker, defensive end. We saw Aaron Casey fill in nicely at that role too.
DK Bondome was in there this year in kind of that position. Yeah. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so I think and they've recruited for that position as well. So I think that's where he ends up. I think he can put on a whole bunch of weight, especially if he enrolls early from Bloomington South and is in there and getting used to the weight room and is in the college program. But we'll see. He could move to that husky position, start at that husky position, and then as he adds on weight, move up to that, more linebacker defensive end position.
Yeah, and, a lot of the scouting projections from 24/7 and other sites kind of just said he's a tweener right now. You don't know exactly where he fits. But what you do know is he is an elite athlete that could probably start on just about any defense in the country. And he's coming to Bloomington, which the family connection obviously is huge. That's an awesome opportunity for all four of the McCulloughs to be able to do that. It's really cool and really special. But a guy like this doesn't come to Indiana even without the family connection, even with the family connection, unless Indiana's in a good spot and he feels like they'll maximize his talent. So you can say whatever you want about the family connections and, maybe we hired McCullough, which is not true, to flip all these guys. But a guy like this doesn't come to Indiana unless he feels good about what he sees on the field and what he thinks he'll get, what the staff will get out of him. So,
part of the reason he's here is to recruit. And his son, and it's not like, he's bringing in his son who's a 2-star recruit. His son's the 50th best player in the nation. Mm-hmm. And so does nepotism play a part in it? Yeah, of course IU wants him, but you got to go after the best, and he just landed a top 50 player. And he's a guy, we call him an athlete, and that's what he's listed at. He's basically a guy who can play any position on the field except probably nose tackle or defensive tackle, because he's not going to get up to 305. But, you could put him anywhere on the field. And in Indiana's defense, you need those guys. And I talked about it with Dan on our draft podcast. The defense is now adjusting to the offense, where you want to have more versatile players who could play different positions so that, when the offense runs out, a personnel where, a tight end could also flex out to receiver, or running back could flex to tight end and things like that. You could adjust. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. We touched on it a little bit, but Dylan McCall II, also coming to IU, transferred in from Miami, Ohio. Didn't play a ton there in, a season and a half if you count the 6-game max season last year. But he'll probably play safety, Sammy. I would assume that's pretty safe to say. Add a little depth probably at that free safety spot for IU, which is always a good thing. Good athlete. He had an IU offer. He had a bunch of Power 5 offers originally out of high school as a 2019 recruit. But obviously, he'll be the first McCullough on campus in an IU uniform. And I would say probably a free safety. Is that safe to say, Sammy?
Yeah, I think he'll play safety. I think Miami, Ohio only played 3 games last year, and he played in, both of them. He played one his true freshman season. He redshirted. So I think he'll have 4 years of eligibility left at IU since last year doesn't count. Because he used his redshirt year in 2019. But yeah, Indiana, Allen said that he wanted to look at safety depth in the portal. You had a whole bunch of guys last week go into the portal and open up some spots. So they went and addressed the need. You do need depth at that free safety position. And some guy, he doesn't have a lot of on-field college experience, but he's been in a college program for 2 years, and he has freshman eligibility left. So I think that's going to be a factor in it. I think he landed at Miami of Ohio for 2 reasons. One, he got hurt his senior year, and I think he only played 3 games. 2, that's where his dad went to college. His dad is the second leading rusher in Miami of Ohio history. So there's a connection there. Miami of Ohio has a rich football history as well. So it's not like, they're picking up the scraps of, he's just Dylan's son and coming to Indiana. They like what they see in him, and they think he could play a factor, if not this year, down the road.
Yeah. And then it's kind of a cool brotherly story. But you mentioned he did get hurt his senior year of high school, and then he wore number 1 in high school, and that's why Deshaun wants to wear number 1 as well, kind of for his brother, which I think is pretty cool as well. But obviously, anytime you flip a guy from OSU, it generates a bunch of buzz. We did the same thing with Samson James a couple classes ago. But a lot of OSU people, upset. I wouldn't say they're super shocked, but IU's starting to, swing with some of the big boys on the recruiting trail now, which is nice to see. So, Sammy, June, we've talked about it again here this evening, and then, this past week. June's going to be a huge month. Having McCullough and now Caden Turner in the fold for the 22 class is a great start. Turner will be on campus for an official in June. Who do you think is next? I know a lot of guys are probably sitting on an offer and feel good about it, and maybe just waiting until they actually get on the campus and see everything in person. A couple guys that I think we're in real good spots with are Travell Mullen, Taiwan's brother, and then Omar Cooper from Lawrence North, 4-star receiver. So you hearing anything, or, what are your kind of predictions for June here now that we have McCullough in the fold?
I'm looking at the visits now to see when Omar Cooper
I think he's coming
comes in
first
that Friday.
Weekend.
Yeah, the 11th. I think you see guys in that class: Omar Cooper, James Mons the third. Travell Mullen doesn't come until I think the next weekend, the 18th, and things like that. Now IU also tweeted out a whole bunch that they're going to be at a whole bunch of camps across the country this year. Whether or not they're going to take a commit from those, especially with visits back open, remains to be seen. You want to get these guys on campus, but I think if I had to bet on who's next, I would probably say Omar Cooper. Yeah,
he's. I would agree with you there. 4-star from Lawrence North, so he played with Donovan McCulley, which would be a nice connection as well. Number 29 overall receiver, and he's a top 250 player as well. So that'd be another nice 4-star to get in the fold here. But Sam, you mentioned those satellite camps. We've seen Kevin Wright, tight ends coach for IU, and a pretty big part of the recruiting setup for Indiana, tweet out today they're going to a bunch of different satellite camps this summer. You don't know who's going to be at what camp, but we've seen Florida State, SMU, Kennesaw State,
Mercer. There's one in Missouri. I forgot what it was. Lindenwood, UIndy. And then last week they tweeted out about they're doing it virtually, but there's a place out in California, like a showcase camp out in California. So you're hitting Texas, Florida, California, Georgia, Missouri, in-state in Indiana. And, I think that's going to be that first week in June. That's why official visits, although they start June 1st, Indiana wanted to push them back a little bit so coaches could go out and see these guys in these camps in states outside of Indiana, because they got a nice pipeline to Florida right now and Georgia, with Coach Warren in Georgia as well. Missouri has always been kind to IU in recruiting as well. So it'll be nice. And then California always has good prospects as well, and to get your face and name out there as well helps.
Yeah, I think again, we don't know who's going to be at what camps personnel wise, but I think that first week of June you'll see probably a bunch of offers go out. Maybe not for this class, but maybe for 23 and beyond. And I'd imagine you're going to see just about every coach at one of those camps, somewhere across the country. So that's great, keeping those pipelines going. And I think definitely the Texas, if we could break into Texas a little more, that would be nice in that Dallas area. With that SMU camp would be nice. But let's go back to the big news of the day, big news of the week, Sammy. Borderline 5-star Dasan McCullough flips from Ohio State to Indiana. We talked about it a little bit. Rated as an athlete, number 50 overall player in the country, probably projects as an edge rusher / linebacker for the Hoosiers. Before we wrap up the live show here, what are your, final thoughts on what turned out to be a pretty big Sunday for Indiana?
Oh, it was a big weekend for Indiana. You got not only Dasan, but you got Dylan McCullough II as well. But I think Dasan is, you hope he's the glue that could put this class together, which is sitting at 2 commits. With Dasan's commitment, I think it jumped up over 20 spots into the top 50, which you're sitting at 2 commits is still pretty solid, sitting at 50. We'll see how big this class is going to be. I think it should be close to a full class with guys who have entered the portal, other guys who may leave early to go pro after the year if they have good years. But if he could bring some studs with him, and not necessarily from Ohio State, but around Indiana too. You look, Caden Curry is still uncommitted. And he would be a game changer along the defensive line there as well. Omar Cooper is a 4-star guy. He was leaning. It seems like he's leaning towards IU anyway without him. But if
Joe Strickland, another 4-star in-state guy, from Brentwood.
If you could start getting these, 4-star guys, borderline 5-star. There's not that many 5-stars. People are like, wow, why doesn't IU recruit? There's like 35 stars in class. Yeah. And half of them go to like Alabama.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But, if you could start bringing some of these some of the top 5 guys in state and some of the top 5 guys in the states around Indiana, you're in business. And I think he gives Indiana's recruiting a little bit more legitimacy towards that. And then obviously I have to show it on the field. Indiana, you got to start continuing to win games. Not necessarily, you don't have to go 11-1 every year, but if you could stack bowl games, you're already at 2 in a row, 4 in the last 6 years, and things like that. If you could put together a decade where you go to 7-8 bowl games, 9 bowl games in 10 years and have winning records and finish in the AP top 25, that you've basically turned this cruise ship around from when, Kevin Wilson had a 10-year plan, and we're right now at 10 years. And Indiana has won 14 games the last 2 years, and it's been, you've turned the cruise ship around. Now it's time to push it off in the right direction and see how much steam you could get going.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. If you followed along closely like we have, you've seen it building now for, the last 5, 6, 7 seasons. It's been close. It hasn't been, exactly a straight upward trajectory, but you've seen the building blocks kind of be, laid in place, and now we're starting to reap the rewards and cash in a little bit. So pretty big day, pretty big weekend for IU. Dylan McCullough II transfers in from Miami, Ohio, probably plays safety for the Hoosiers, and then 4-star, number 50 overall player for 2022, Dasan McCullough, decommits from Ohio State, commits to Indiana on Sunday. Pretty big day for the Hoosiers, pretty big weekend for the Hoosiers. We already have a couple articles up about Dasan and Dylan McCullough II. If you haven't checked those out, make sure you head over to our site at HoosierHuddle.com and read those. I know we'll have another piece about Dasan tonight, if not 2. a reaction piece, and we're going to try to get some quotes and some scouting reports up as well. So make sure you are following us on Twitter and checking out the site this evening and into early next week as we get you all caught up to speed. Sammy, any thoughts?
Yeah, this seems like it's just the tip of the iceberg for a big recruiting summer for IU football.
Yep.
And I know it's still only April, but June is going to be huge, and we'll have you covered up through June. And it's an exciting time to be, not just an Indiana football fan, but an Indiana sports fan as well. Mm-hmm. But June is going to be huge.
Yeah, definitely agree. So make sure, like Sammy said, you're following along on Twitter and on our site at HoosierHuddle.com for all the latest. Sammy, thanks as always, and enjoy the rest